A part of me really want to go in on George Foreman, man. You know what I'm saying? I really want to go in on George Foreman for that shit he talked about with Canelo Alvarez being the hardest puncher in boxing. Um, the only thing that stopped me from going all in on this dude is he just lost his daughter, you know, um, and tragically, supposedly by suicide, by hanging, you know what I'm saying? So that kind of nullifies my assault, you know. But I'm still going to go in on to an extent. Um, I'm like this, man. I know some people are going to say, well, how do you know what's in his heart? Maybe he thinks that Canelo's the hardest puncher. Like, I mean, come on, man. Like, I don't even halfway watch boxing anymore. And I know that Deontay Wilder, his punching power is on a historic level. Like, it's to a point where he's compared to the all-time greats. See, it's funny, when the Klitschko's were ruling boxing, all I kept hearing about was their awesome knockout percentage. They broke Rocky Marciano's record for knockout percentage and all this shit. But here you got Deontay Wilder, who's knocked out, I believe, all but two of his opponents. And I believe the two opponents that he didn't knock out were knocked down. So you have a guy whose power is up there with the likes of, just speaking on a historic level, is up there with the likes of Jim Jeffries in his era, Max Baer. Okay, think about the great power punchers in history, heavyweight history. Rocky Marciano, of course, Sonny Liston, Mike Tyson, George Foreman himself. As a matter of fact, when you look at Deontay Wilder and the way that he fights, there's a lot of similarities between him and George Foreman. George Foreman just was stockier. Um, Wilder probably a little bit more athletic. Okay, so you would think that George Foreman would gravitate toward a guy like that. So for him to say that Canelo Alvarez is the best puncher, like I don't know what he's looking at. I have no idea what he's looking at. Like, Wilder is a knockout machine. George Foreman was a knockout machine. Is some of that like him not watching boxing, or and not being privy to certain guys, but it really can't be that either. I think it's pure old fashioned hating. I do think he's hating. I think he sees a guy who is, clearly the best puncher in boxing. Being a puncher was George Foreman thing. You know what I'm saying? And he don't want to give the guy credit. I mean, that might be part of it. But George Foreman has always been like a corporate guy, man, too, man. He's always been a corporate guy for decades. You know what I'm saying? Like, he also is a guy that felt like he didn't get his just due. You know what I'm saying? That Paul Pierce syndrome. When he first came upon the scene in the Olympics in '68, gotta remember this was a time when black consciousness was on the rise, and I think it was in Mexico City when he waved that American flag, and a lot of black people felt a certain way about that. So then he went pro and he started mimicking his idol, Sonny Liston, especially after Sonny Liston died. Man, he just took on this whole new persona where he was like this evil bad guy and shit. And you know, a lot of people cheered when Muhammad Ali beat him. Foreman was not a beloved heavyweight champion at that time. So he lost his title. It completely caused him to unravel mentally. And then when he converted to Christianity, he was out of boxing for a decade, came back and reinvented himself. You know what I'm saying? People got to remember that his motivation for coming back to boxing wasn't necessarily because he loved the sport. It came out of financial necessity. So, you got to think about his motivations when he came back to boxing the second time. You know what I'm saying? And I take nothing away from George Foreman. I think that there's a great argument that Foreman is the greatest puncher in the history of the sport. I think Ernie Shavers had the greatest right hand, though. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, there's an argument for great argument for Foreman in that regards, But you gotta respect what Deontay Wilder is doing, and nobody gives this guy the respect that he deserves. You know what I mean? It's bad enough that you got these race trolls out here that shit on everything that Deontay Wilder does. You know what I'm saying? Or minimize his achievements or his accomplishments in a situation where if Deontay Wilder was a white guy, I hate to say it like that, but it's true. If Deontay Wilder was a white guy, man, he'd be all over magazines and he'd be praised as the greatest power puncher to ever live and all this other shit, man. You know what I'm saying? But I don't know. It's just, it really doesn't make any sense, man. I mean, Canelo Alvarez is, I guess, what you would call a boxer puncher. Um, but like I said, Wilder is a power puncher. I mean, he's a pure, knockout artist. He's a KO artist, and nobody really wants to have any parts of the guy. You know what I'm saying? And I think some of it also is like Deontay Wilder is a guy that is verbally, he's very verbal about how he feels about certain social issues. You know what I'm saying? And whenever you're a black guy like that and you speak out about certain shit, you're gonna have your haters. You know what I'm saying? Even people that look like you. Remember, Ernie Terrell couldn't stand Muhammad Ali. He couldn't stand him to the point where he knew Muhammad Ali didn't like to be called Cassius Clay, but he insisted on calling him Cassius. You know what I'm saying? There's always these American humble pie ass niggas, man. You know what I'm saying? These guys that always preach about, well, this ain't a bad country. I got opportunities I got to. I took advantage of my opportunities. This is a great United States of America. And you work hard and tuck your lip in and, press your nose down. You get good opportunities too. There's always them type of niggas, man. And George Foreman, man, he's always been a little bit of a coon, man. He's not a guy. George Foreman's not a guy that ever went out his way to speak about shit on social, when it comes to social issues. I think that shit rubs him the wrong way in a lot of ways. And before that, he's kind of hating on Deontay Wilder a lot, man. But I don't know, man. It is what it is. He, in the end, the body of evidence will be there, and it will show that Deontay Wilder is at least one of, the greatest knockout artists in the history of the sport, and he's undefeated. I mean, that's what really gets me. You know, Canelo Alvarez gets all this praise, but people forget that he lost badly to Floyd Mayweather, who is another guy that, despite how I feel about him as a person, which isn't much, as a fighter, you got to give the dude his due, all right? But they never did that. And it's like they're yin and yang, you know? Deontay Wilder just replaced Floyd Mayweather as the hated nigga in boxing, man. But that's how I feel about that. Tell me what you guys think.